So here I am, chief of police, on an island where the poultry inspector gets to be the governor, and the guy who lies on his back smoking ganja, getting laid his whole life long, gets to be the hero. You like Bugs Bunny? I'm Chris Pivey.
Hi, Mighty Webb.
And today we're here to talk about the greatest Denzel Washington movie that no one else ever talks about. The Mighty Quinn. Good morning, listeners. I went a long time back and forth debating between quotes, and part of me was thinking I could put up a quote and then I'll just break out into singing the Mighty Quinn to see the look on Eddie's face.
You
But I
could.
chose not to. I restrained for the moment.
For the moment, right. We'll see how long that lasts throughout the course of this discussion.
My question for you, Eddie Webb. Have you seen this movie before?
No, partially because, for those of you who follow the Patreon, we recently talked about The Last Dragon, and we had a conversation about how The Last Dragon is actually a musical, and we discussed a little bit about my relationship with musicals and whatnot. So I was shocked, nay, dismayed to find out that I've been tricked into watching yet another musical.
But this isn't a musical, Eddie. This is a thriller.
As to your definition last episode, if there is diegetic music where people sing and it involves the plot, it is a musical.
Of course this is a musical.
I don't know how long that protest would last.
This movie has 3 Marleys in it, Eddie.
I didn't know that.
So, oh my God. They just pop up throughout it. The 2 that I know the most are the 2 backup singers for Shirley Roth in her band. Like, those are 2 of Bob Marley's daughters, and I forgot their mom's name, who is his wife, but she's also
Rita?
in it. I think so.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. So it's interesting. When I started listening, it's like, oh, okay, because partially, my wife, when she was younger, was really into reggae. We actually own a number of reggae albums, like physical, vinyl albums. So listening to reggae is actually not that unusual for me. It's like, oh yeah, I like reggae. I like reggae quite a bit. But then separately also is having lived in London for a while, I've gotten very used to hearing Jamaican accents just out and around about the streets. So it was interesting. Like, this was a weirdly comforting movie to watch because it's like, oh, I recognize that, not all the songs, but like, some songs, like, oh, I recognize that song. I recognize, like, I think it was I Watch the Girls. I recognize that one. I recognize Mighty Quinn. And then just hearing people talk, it's like, oh yeah, this is stuff I hear pretty regularly. So yeah, I was like, oh, this is okay. I don't know anything about Jamaica, but the sound of the movie was very familiar in a lot of ways.
Since we started with music at the top, there are also several other like big reggae musicians in the film whose names I don't remember because we don't do a lot of research as well known, but they are there, and right. I want to give them a shout out. If people really want to know, go look at the credits. Better yet, go buy the soundtrack to the movie. Better yet, go buy like the new Blu-ray for the movie and give it some support. So we're gonna want to put that in there. And since we're talking about music and you mentioned the Mighty Quinn, so Bob Dylan wrote the Mighty Quinn.
Right.
And it was in the 60s. He wrote like the Mighty Quinn. And this whole thing was, he even went and saw the movie when it came out and said that when he was writing the song, he envisioned Denzel as the Mighty Quinn. If you listen to Bob Dylan's version of the Mighty Quinn, you'll likely know that it's not likely possible.
Yes.
Just
it does sound exactly like a Bob Dylan thing to say. I would not be surprised if that quote involved some form of he saw it in a dream or saw it in a vision, because that also sounds like a very Bob Dylan thing to say.
Regardless, though, he did say that he liked the movie and everything else and gave like its kudos. The movie itself, the title The Mighty Quinn was not the original name of it. It's based on a book I did write this down because I have to give a shout out to my fellow authors. A8Z Carr was the person that wrote the book in the 60s.
Right.
But when it was going to become a movie, so that's putting the writer. I'm going to jump back to like the 80s. And when they were filming it, under the title of Finding Malby was the name of the book. And
Mhm.
when people saw it, they thought that Malby was the lead of the movie. And so they go, oh, we can't do that. Fuck that.
Which is it's funny because like when I was watching this, I saw the title Finding Malby. I'm like, okay, and then Malby came onto screen, and I was like, why? First, I was like, why did they change the title to make it clear that this is a different lead character, right? Um, and I was worried what had happened was the movie had been so heavily rewritten from the novel in some way to where they moved the focus from one character to another. Having watched it, I now understand what the reference Binding Malby is actually for. That it still can be a story about Quinn specifically. But I went in going, man, how thinking movie had been heavily rewritten as a result. Sounds like it's not that case. They just changed the title because, like you said, audiences are dumb.
Essentially. Because Denzel was the lead, and this was Denzel's first big like lead movie. Before
Okay.
this, there was something like Heart Condition. I think it might have been called. Glory comes out later in '89. So like this is Denzel's big opportunity to shine and like do his whole thing. And it's before he became Denzel.
Right.
He was just an amazing, super handsome actor with a bunch of chemistry, charisma, as people say.
Charisma, yeah. And that's something that I was going to mention when we talk about it, but it's not really an easy place to talk about it necessarily. Is that when I first started watching it, again, not knowing the context of where this is in Denzel's career, I was like, oh, it's Denzel doing Jamaican accent. But when I went back and looked at, it's like, oh, this is one of his early things. I could see audiences going, oh, that's a Jamaican actor. But Denzel, very specifically, when he is talking to, particularly when he's talking to other white characters, I notice he intentionally drops the accent, and then Quinn's accent comes back when he's talking to other people in the community. And so I realized, no, that's it because Denzel's great. It's like he's intentionally using his accent to show code switching throughout the course of the movie.
Yeah.
But I wonder, like, if you didn't know who Denzel Washington was at that time when it first came out, which way the code switching was going, right?
Some of the reviews I read though at the time say the accent drops in and out inconsistently.
It seemed to me like it was only happening around white characters, but I may be reading too much into it.
So I didn't know, but I do know that I wasn't gonna really talk about the accents that much because I didn't know enough about even that aspect of it to know if there were conscious choices. Maybe it's just because he was around actors that were Jamaican or had more Jamaican influences than he did that it helped bring the accent out. So
Mhm.
that was one of the big weak points that I've seen people try to bring up about the film.
Sure.
Funnily enough, I always mention the Siskel and Ebert because I like to go and find their old reviews when I can to see what they think
Right.
of the movie. It was
Right.
fascinating. And they loved this movie.
Really?
They thought it was like the best.
Wow.
And there's
Actually mildly surprised by that.
they're like, that Denzel kid's got moxie. He's going places.
It's got to be a star one day.
All right. Maybe they didn't say moxie and go all 1930s how I did, but they did say that he is going to be a star.
You got gumption. Yeah. I ran out of superlatives there.
Trying to figure out where I want to go with this movie because I didn't know we were going to talk about music at the top.
The movie. I'm sorry.
That is what our entire podcast is, Eddie.
It's screwing things up for each other.
It's little landmines to see what the other would do and how they react. That's why we're not edited. We're not like those professional people with money. We're just two guys in a shed somewhere in different countries. Originally, this was supposed to have been a movie in the late 60s, early 70s. And it was supposed to star Louis Gossett Jr. and Sammy Davis Jr.
Wow, that would have been a very different movie.
But, of course, Hollywood at the time didn't let that movie come to fruition. But to show you
Sure.
how powerful this, or how great the book itself was, is it stayed in the consciousness for like 17 years before it actually became the movie that we saw.
That's a good sign, actually.
I'm really curious who each of them would have played. Like, one of the things I saw said that Louis Gossett Jr. was going to play Quinn, and another one said Sammy Davis Jr. was going to play Quinn. I can't see Sammy Davis Jr. as Quinn.
No, I could see Sammy Davis Jr. as Malby, but I could not see him as Quinn.
Damn. Mm. I still can't believe you hadn't seen this movie. This movie is like comfort food to some extent. Although, admittedly, as much as I may or may not like it, it's not one that I watch a lot.
I could see that. The one thing I was struck by, which apparently a lot of other reviewers were also struck by, is how much it feeds into our own mission statements of genrelessness, because like it is not quite a musical, as we kind of talked about. It's also, you said it's a thriller, which it is that, but it's also a mystery. It's also a comedy. It's also, buddy cop is the wrong word, but buddy dynamic. One guy is strict and stern, the other one's wild, goofy. It's a lot of these different styles of genre, and how effortlessly it kind of just switches between those. It is kind of impressive.
Then I don't know if that's because of some of the screen rewrites, because I haven't read the book, but I do know that Albert Z. Carr, this was his first novel that he ever wrote, and essentially he was going to win the Edgar Award, and he won the Edgar Award for the novel, but it was posthumously because he'd written the book, got it, and it sent it off to the publisher, and then he passed away.
Oh,
and
shit.
Then the book won all these awards and everything else, so he didn't get to know how successful his book was.
Right, and the Edgar is a big mystery fiction award, if I remember correctly.
It's like the Oscars for mystery writers.
Right. There's also it's called the Quill. There's a British mystery award that's its equivalent, but I can't think off my head what it's called.
I thought about like trying to play it up and make that it wasn't, because we were talking about Star-Lord before this, and you were just still thinking about Peter Quill, but I will let it go. I think you were right. It is the Quill.
How dare you, sir?
One of the things that I found out, though, because I did like a little digging into Carr, because to write something this good, to be that successful on your first novel, is astonishing. I wanted to know more about
only novel. Yeah.
Turns out that Carr was a presidential advisor and an economist, and he worked with like Franklin D. Roosevelt and Harry S. Truman. He's called in to give them economic information, like as their economists, to do stuff for them. That is
Holy
a guy
crap.
that did it.
Man, that's wild. I love that.
Which is why, though, he probably knew so much about like the $10,000 bill, how all those different pieces of economy work, and everything else.
That's actually something I was going to ask you if you knew, because I feel like the $10,000 stuff was real, but I was like, I couldn't be certain, but it certainly has a ring of authenticity and a weird emphasis on economics that I haven't seen since Goldfinger. Right? Remember in Goldfinger where they were talking about how gold bullion works for like 10 minutes? Yeah, and I was like, this feels a bit similar. Like they really know their bit about this one area.
It was real. In fact, it was primarily supposed to be used for like businesses and doing big business transactions to do sort of an exchange rate. But the Treasury Department took it out of circulation in 1969. But they were still legal. They were still legal tender and floating around. If you had one, they're in fact worth more than $10,000 just because of the rarity of the bill.
Huh. So when was the novel written?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Because it was in the 60s.
And I did not
write
it down. I think so.
In the 60s. Well, so I'm wondering if that was one of the rewrites of the script, because it sounds like the bill would have been out of circulation after the novel came out. But that doesn't mean that the bill wasn't like in the process of being phased out when the novel
Finding Malby was originally published in 1971.
Okay, all right. So it would have been right when it was happening.
Not a rewrite. He would have known about it as an economist. He probably would have known before it happened.
Okay. then that makes more sense because I thought it was in the 60s for some reason. But 71 makes more sense. Then it's the that would have been probably like you said, top of his mind. Of like,
Yeah,
here's a
that's
thing that I can make a whole crime story around, which is, I love that stuff, right? I love these tiny little nuggets that you can build a whole story around.
and funnily enough, so Sammy Davis Jr. and the Louis Gossett Jr. were in 1971. Like the book was that successful that it was going to start to become a movie then.
Yeah.
Wow. Now that I'm looking at some of my notes instead of just riffing off the top of my head, man, I take good notes. Look at that. I just need to pay attention to them.
It's almost like that.
What else do you want to go about the movie? Like the movie itself was, I want to say, mildly successful. I'm trying to remember. I think it had a very small budget. I think it might have doubled the budget, maybe. I
That's
didn't
not
write
bad.
the budget information down this time, which is unusual, which means I probably couldn't find it when I looked for it.
I mean, just because we've done this for a while, watching it did feel like it was. I feel like there's a distinction between a movie that looks low budget and a movie that looks fine, but if you know what you're looking for, you can deduce it's low budget. This movie does not look like it's a low budget film, but I noticed like they kept the location shooting down. Like the helicopter is conveniently away from all the actual action in case anyone actually, injured the helicopter in any way. Little things like that. Where it's like I can see where they're kind of pinching pennies here and there on the script.
One of the things I did find out, and I'm mentioning it now because I may not remember it later, is that when the helicopter crashed into the building,
Uh
that
huh.
was like a real building. In fact, the history of the building dealt with people mix salt water into the mixture, so when they built the building, it would erode faster, and so it was already a ruined structure. A ruined structure.
Oh,
When they crashed helicopter into it, it made it more dilapidated.
okay. That's good to know. But like, yeah, like example, like they had one helicopter, they were going to crash it once, so by God, they had to get that one right.
Yeah, there was originally more of an interracial kiss slash relationship scene between Denzel and Mimi Rogers,
Hmm.
but 80th audiences hated it, and so they cut it and they reduced it down because they were racist. I said it.
It's pretty clear that's where that was going, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, partially because their chemistry was just off the fucking charts. But also that's the pattern of these style of slightly noirish films, right? Is that the protagonist has a contentious relationship with one woman. He falls into the arms of femme fatale. The femme fatale seduces him. He regrets that and ultimately ends back with the woman that he originally was supposed to start the movie with. That's just kind of a pretty common structure for these kinds of films. So, like when I saw that, I was like, "Oh, that's going to happen here." And then it kind of just didn't happen. And then I was like, "Oh, it's the '80s." I think I can kind of figure out why that didn't happen. But come on.
And I think part of that has followed Denzel through his career because I know there's also in the Pelican Brief, if you watch it, there was supposed to have been a scene between him and Julia Roberts that was also cut. Like
That sucks.
one
He's
of
a handsome
the
man.
big things about the movie is while you can tell it's in the Caribbean somewhere, they never like say what the island is or anything else, so they can
Right.
play with whatever sort of governmental structure they want completely without making it, um, I guess, offensive to any particular country or area.
Sure. It's like Gotham or Metropolis or Springfield. It's uh, uh, the equivalent of a authentic sounding name, but that can't be pinned down to any one area.
But we all know Gotham's in New York, Eddie, and I thought it was across the river from Metropolis.
I thought Gotham was Chicago, actually.
That's just where Christopher Nolan likes to say it is.
Well, if you can't trust Christopher Nolan, Chris, who can you trust?
There's a whole debate online about Christopher Nolan right now.
Yes, because of the Odyssey.
I think people should go see The Odyssey. I saw it. It was good.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'll say because of the Odyssey, just because it's the dumbest reasons why people are mad.
Yeah. Yeah. But, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of stupid, um, actually, no, that wasn't where I was going. It's just because that's in my head right now because people online are stupid.
You
Uh,
know how you made a James Bond reference earlier?
yes.
That was the incorrect James Bond reference to make, Eddie. This
What, what,
movie
what,
has an homage to James Bond in it, but it has an
what?
homage to Doctor No.
Oh, really? What's that?
You know the three men, the three blind men. I'm doing finger quotes as they're tapping on the road across the street.
Oh, yeah.
A direct homage to Doctor No's James Bond with three finger
Right,
quotes
because in
blind
Doctor
men.
No, when we saw them, the score started playing Three Blind Mice when they were going after Bonds.
Yes.
Speaking of music, actually, do you know if Denzel was actually playing that piano?
Yes, that was him playing and singing. It's one of the rare moments. I don't think it's actually. I think it is the only moment on film in a movie that he's done that. And I can't remember, but I don't even think the crew knew that he could do it, and he just did it.
Wow. Because it was because again, like it's hard to quantify sometimes, but like there are moments where the way it's captured on film, it doesn't look staged. It looks like people's reactions are authentic. And the way people kind of stopped and stared when he started playing the piano did seem like the cast were going, "Wait, what?"
Oh, it was amazing. Michael Rose is the person that performed the reggae version of the Mighty Quinn. Because
Okay.
as we all know, this version is a little different than the one that Bob Dylan made.
A bit. Do you know anything
And
about Michael
Rose
Rose?
was the lead singer of the Black Uru, one of Jamaica's most important reggae groups. Look at that. I even made a note for myself that I read from the note sheet
Do you know anything else
instead
about
of
Black
just
Uhuru?
riffing. I'm sorry, what?
Do you know anything else about Black Uhuru?
It's not on the note sheet. I do not know.
That's it. All I got. It was most important reggae group, and that is all we know.
Like you said, there are several big reggae stars in the movie.
Yeah.
And so some of them I can spot, but I don't know their names. And I vaguely remember some of their songs. And as always, the fact that we have a note sheet now, Eddie, is more work than we should have ever done. I think I should cut the trivia section from our note sheet so everything going forward is just off the top of our heads.
Whatever, remember. And if you don't know anything, then I mean, it worked great for Defective L, where she's like, I don't know, show exists.
Essentially, it's what I do now. I think part of me, I write them more for you. And then I occasionally may look and go, oh, look at that. I did that thing.
I mean, to be fair, it does occasionally help me because, like, even if I don't understand the context of the note, I'll go, "Oh, actually, I didn't know about this. Let's talk about that." Um,
Oh, there is one more thing I want. Super, super important because I'm glad I wrote this down and I looked. The co-screenwriter Hampton Felcher was the one of the screenwriters for Blade Runner.
really?
Yes.
Wow.
And I loved finding that out because I didn't know it. And I was thinking, that dude did Blade Runner, which is fucking exceptional. And he did The Mighty Quinn that I have thoughts on that I have not told the listeners what my final opinion is yet.
I cannot immediately see a connection between those two movies.
Love it. And that shows talent. Like that
Yeah,
is
absolutely.
mind blown.
There is a certain, especially for co-writers, a certain style of co-writer where if you're really, really good, you can adapt your style to whatever the project needs, which if you do your job really well means people have no clue how easy that is, or how hard that is, I should say. And a lot of times you don't get famous because you don't have a certain voice that stands out, right? Like,
Yeah.
everyone knows what like a David Lynch film will go like, or a Tarantino movie or whatever, because they have such strong voices, and that's fine. That's great. I'm not dismissing, well, maybe Tarantino, but I'm not dismissing having a strong authorial voice. But there's an equally good talent that is not recognized of being able to adapt your voice to suits what's necessary. because it can be so easy to kind of just fall into a rut and do that. So being able to go, I can go from Blade Runner and then 8 years later do this movie, and it's like they're both mysteries? Question mark. It's about all I got, right? Because like, otherwise, again, there's just nothing in common between these two movies. So that is, as a craftsman, I'm genuinely impressed by that.
Which, to that point, would actually take a beat. So Quinn in this movie is so different than like Decker and most other like
Yep.
general police officers or agents that we follow. Like his
Mhm.
entire approach and attitude feels different. If anything, if you're remember the patron, you know that we covered Shaft, and there's
Right.
something reminiscent about Shaft's vibe and Quinn's vibe here. But Quinn is even lighter than what Shaft was, but
I gotta see that. Yeah.
harder too at the same time.
Right, because Quinn's role is much closer to like a small town sheriff than anything else, right? So again, it's probably may just be because we just got the Western one, but there's a bit of Western vibe in this too, of like the sheriff's cleaning up town and trying to deal with the local miscreants. You can see a little bit of that in the dynamic as well.
Yeah. Anything else before we jump into the movie proper?
I think we have beat the trivia to death.
Blade Runner. What the?
Blade Runner.
We open with a
Wow.
multicolored credit, a woman screaming, and then a flash of full reggae band rocking out. Natty dreadlocks. People loving life at a wedding. Finally, the camera pans over to Xavier Quinn, who is the chief of police of a small island, Caribbean, looking stern before a woman flirts him up. He moves into action, breaking up an incident. On his way to on his way to a murder scene, leaving the wedding, nearly crashed into Malby, a petty crook who's also Quinn's best friend, and the pair banter with a knowing look over a suitcase before he leaves.
uh, so again, we've talked a little bit about musicals and my relationship with musicals and whatnot, and like so, one thing there's a lot of times where I can appreciate a good soundtrack, and I'm trying to understand better, like my relationship with music and musical stuff, blah blah. That said, the last time a song has been stuck in my head I can think of is way back when we did the Bubblegum Crisis run. Hurricane was stuck in my head for days. Natty Dreadlocks has been stuck in my head for fucking days since watching this movie.
Because it's an awesome song.
It's an amazing song.
I think, and I'm saying with 60% certainty, the woman screaming is Rita Marley. I think.
Okay. Nice.
I think. But Natty Dreadlocks.
That song is like, and again, I went through an emotional journey because I'm like, okay, they're just gonna do the chorus over and over again. The song's gonna piss me off in like 5 seconds, and then like 5 seconds later, it's like, oh no, this is a banger. It's stuck in my head forever now.
Like there's something magical about like entire opening of the film for me.
Mhm.
Hearing like the screaming I'm trying to remember the first time I saw it. Hearing the screaming, I instantly think, of course, they're going to be like the murder, and that's how we're going to start the entire movie. Undercut completely, like rug pulled feet under.
Right, but then there is a murder like within a few minutes.
But it's not the one you think, even then, because we
Right.
have like Xavier in his white police uniform. Awesome. Goes get a fight. There's like a guy with a knife threatening someone else. You think, all right, this is going to be our big thing here, right? No, like quickly dispatches it with a little of his own martial arts, and then he gets caught. Then there's like the real murder in a hot tub that's somewhere else.
Now that we're talking about it, this chunk you've chosen, so I'm going to briefly go out to as far as the interaction with Malby. This does kind of speed run through all the tone changes you're going to get throughout the whole film, right? Because again, it starts off with a scream, immediately cuts to music, and so it's like, oh, okay, so it's not a thriller, it's a musical. But then there's an action scene and a little bit of character developments. But then we get to, oh, well, there's been a murder. And it's like, okay, so it is a mystery. So the scream does tie to the mystery, but then he runs into Malby and it was comedy, right? So like the movie in this first like only to 10 minutes, a lot happens in a short period of time. it's like a precis of the whole film, right? These are the kinds of tone changes we're going to go through. This is, frankly, most of the major characters you're going to see all addressed in some point. The music being a huge component of the vibe and feel of the movie. All that happens in a really short space, but specifically that kind of tonal shift. And it happens again so elegantly, right? Like I didn't quite realize how many shifts I'd gone through until I got to the end of this chunk. And I was like, I actually don't know what genre this movie is right now.
And I totally agree. And that's, as you were saying, maybe 5 to 10 minutes. You've gone through all of those. You've met a lot of the characters. You've also seen how super proficient that Quinn is,
Yep.
but also his something with him and women feels off, that he's running away from like this super hot woman trying to flirt with him.
Yep.
So you know there's something there. And the fact that instead of trying to instantly fight a criminal, he tries to like de-escalate, and that doesn't work. He still stops him, but as non-violently as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And you get the divide in town because the murder happened. Even in the murder scene, there's Mimi Rogers and a black woman who is obviously like the servant there, telling her what to do for like essentially, I think, her first day there. And the hot tub showing it's on the other side, finger quotes, of town,
Mm-hmm.
with primarily white people. So like showing the different racial dynamics too,
Yep.
in under 10 minutes.
Right. And go back real quick to the fight scene, like, um, also setting certain stakes. Like, this is not a movie that's gonna have a ton of gunplay, and knives are a scary, important weapon. Which kind of sets tone for like how the violence is gonna be as a tone for this movie. Guns eventually happen, but much later. Mm.
When switchblades were like all the rave, like the deadliest weapon you could have.
Well, I mean, you're joking, but like also knife crime is a really big problem here in London specifically, but in UK in general, because we don't have, we have really strong gun laws. So like, a knife is a scary weapon. But for an American film, you're right. That's a very specific cultural moment.
Yeah.
And it also says you like, again, this is a small community. Even though it's a Caribbean islands, it's still a small town functionally. And so like pulling a gun out is a level of escalation that no one is keen on. And you get a lot of that just from the dynamics of how this all plays out.
I think also the gun itself, though, would show a level of prosperity that these characters don't necessarily
Good
have.
point. Good point.
Because there's also that economic piece to take into account.
That's a really good show, which is something that we see more of later. But it's kind of folded in with the white black dynamic here as well, because like the white people are rich, and most of the other black characters here are seen as substantially poorer.
And okay, Malby on the bike on the road, and as it's coming around the sides.
Yep.
Eddie, this didn't remind me of anywhere in America I've been, but this reminded me when I was on my honeymoon in Ireland with my wife, driving around on small Irish
Oh my
roads
God!
that
Yes.
appear and disappear as you're on
Yes.
them. Is what I
And if you're going the wrong way, you will fucking kill someone. I lived in Ireland briefly, 100%. And it's just like it's barely wide enough for a car. If two cars are coming the opposite direction, then you're basically shoving your car into the hedge. God, yeah, absolutely.
and all the Irish people that live there would zip around those corners
Yep.
like nothing,
Mhm.
going easily 30 miles over where they should be, and we're like, eek, eek, eek. Sorry, we're going to cause an accident. Zoof.
I didn't make that connection till you said it, but then as soon as I said it, all came flooding back. It's like, yes, absolutely. I've been on those roads, and they are fucking terrifying.
Oh, and for anyone that's curious, yes, the whole thing about a road being one way up to like 4 p.m. or anything was actually a system that was used.
Yep. Also, weirdly reminds me, and this may be a bit of an obscure take. Um, uh, Initial D. I don't know if you ever read the manga or saw the
I
anime.
saw the anime.
Okay, yeah, because one of the minor plot points of Initial D is that it's about 90s Japanese street racing, right? But it was specifically they would go into the mountains and they would go downhill in the mountains at high speed at night, which was specifically illegal because that is fucking terrifying and dangerous to do. So again, similar idea of like roads going in one direction or being only available at certain times a day. Is just something that I guess doesn't really happen. Maybe it happens in more rural parts of America, but it's fairly hard to wrap your head around if you're not familiar with the concept.
And Washington and Townsend's chemistry is off the charts, even in this scene where they first start interacting.
Yep. Like when they run into each other and the fairly obviously Gucci-ish suitcase falls down between them, right? And then they both look down at it and look at each other. In a different movie, a fight would have started as they both scramble for the suitcase, right? But the chemistry between them is so strong within moments. It's like, no, they're friends. They're not going to fight over this. But what instead happens is Quinn, you can almost see in his eyes Quinn going, I know what you have there. You know I know what you have there. And I know you know that I know what you have there. But none of that said, it's all just in the chemistry and the body movements, which is really fantastic acting.
And the whole time, Malby does nothing but sort of smile and is lying to him. And he's like, I'm lying to you. And you know that I'm lying to you.
Yep.
But the question is, do you care enough at this moment to do anything about it?
Could you imagine this guy playing Gambit, right?
If it come out then, yes.
Yes.
Robert Townsend would have been amazing.
Yes.
What I don't know, I vaguely remember something, though, that somehow Robert Townsend got... like, I think there were wider executives in Hollywood that decided they didn't like Robert Townsend and kind of quashed his career. Is something I vaguely remember. I don't have enough reference points for it, and I didn't research it to be able to discuss it. But I vaguely remember that. So I'm putting that out right now as a point for me when I re-listen to this, and maybe future Chris will go and read up on it.
Right.
Because he should have been infinitely more successful than he was.
Yeah, totally. But I brought the Gambit thing also because, like, it is exactly that kind of charming, lovable rogue. And that is, it turns out, I didn't know the plot of the movie in time, but it turns out that is a critical thing to nail right here, because you also have to be charmed by Malby for the rest of the movie to make any sense. Yeah. And it gets nailed perfectly right here. Mm.
And I can say to date, all the castings I've seen for Gambit, none of them have the charisma that Gambit should have that Robert Townsend has.
Certainly not Channing Tatum, that's for damn sure.
I didn't call out Channing Tatum. I'm not even talking about any future casting of Gambit, but there's a level of charisma that Gambit needs, because one of Gambit's powers essentially is like super charisma is one of his powers.
Right.
And that is never played up. It's always about like the charging shit. Yeah, we all know he can charge stuff, but that's not who Gambit is.
Right. Gambit is the kind of guy who will blow up your house and then he will come over and apologize to it and you feel bad for him.
Yes, because that is like his skill. Oh, all right. We're not here to rant about X-Men. Otherwise, I'd rant about casting.
Right. But still, like it's a trope. It's an archetype of that kind of rogue is a common term, so like, I could see why. Now that we've talked about it a bit, I could see why if you're watching this film and this film's called Finding Malby, and then you saw this scene, you'd be confused why the movie doesn't then follow Malby for the rest of the movie.
Yes, and they needed this film to be Denzel. They need people to know this is Denzel's film because they're counting on his cachet to bring an audience.
Right. So normally, I think it was even like when we were first talking about, it was a little kind of like, I don't know why they changed it, but now that we're talking this through, I could see why that would be specifically confusing, because they're both extremely charismatic. And after this scene, you do want to go, I want to know more about Malby. I want to follow what shenanigans he's up to. And the movie doesn't do that, but that's importance for what Quinn has to go through. So,
and you also need to know about his charisma because everyone else on the island loves him, and you need to know why they love him.
Right. This is a weirdly load-bearing scene now that we talked it through.
It establishes the stakes. Like, even the $10,000 bill is right here. Like, if he'd open the case in a movie, boop, done.
Yep. Yeah. And then he doesn't because they're friends.
And he gets a call. Like, that call about the murder is like the other things. All right, I actually don't have time. to like bust your ass right now.
That is true. That is true.
Oh, love it. When Donald Pater, the millionaire owner of the luxury resort hotel, is found murdered, Xavier examines the body as Thomas Elgin points a finger at Malby, who obviously murdered him. And he's brought in his own doctor to look at the body for them. And it's already been examined 2 hours ago. Xavier doesn't need to do anything but just report it. Well, Xavier attempts to investigate. Thomas continually is underfoot and pulling strings to have the island's governor, Chalk, intercede. Quinn chats up Hedley Elgin for more information about Donald, and she lets slip that the native ladies before let it slip about the native ladies and Donald's infatuation with them before once again Quinn is interrupted by Thomas, who plays the white racist all over the place, just wanting Quinn to find that it's Malby and get the fuck out. Back at the station, Quinn assigns officers to go look for the suspect, but warns them that people love Malby and won't turn him in. When a few officers find him, Malby brings down the house to escape with a suitcase. Governor Chalk insults Malby as he berates Quinn about pissing off the white man, and he should just do what he's told.
Yes. So in the course of doing this, we've seen a fair amount of white authority figures belligerent or browbeating black people trying to do their jobs, right? And so
shocked I say, Eddie.
I know,
shocked
right?
That would happen on our podcast, and we'd highlight these things.
Who could have anticipated that actually happening? But I've become weirdly a bit of a connoisseur of that specific scene now after several years. And so like I'm watching this and I'm like, okay, I immediately know kind of where the next 10 or so minutes of this movie are going to go. Especially when he brought in his like, oh, the doctor saw him 2 hours ago. And I'm like, yeah, you forged that report clearly. You came up with Malby out of nowhere. And so there's an interesting bit because like, at first I thought this was a problem. I thought this is an error because I thought maybe the movie is trying to make it look like Malby was escaping from the murder scene, and that's why we should be suspecting Malby. And the way the movie's structured, Malby was never really a serious suspect. On reflection, I think that's intentional. I think the movie's intentionally going, there is no way Malby could have done this. Because I remember before the Malby fleeing scene, there's another scene where we see him doing something completely different with the suitcase. So it's like he couldn't have been in the same spot. We as the audience know he couldn't have been in the same spot as the person who murdered this person. So we as the audience actually know more than any of the characters in the scene do. We know that Malby is innocent. And I think that's my guess is that it's intentional because then the whole scene comes across as the white people are covering up this murder and trying to pin it on what at first sounds like a random black person, but we since find out everyone on the island knows Malby as a rogue, and so that's probably the only name they know of. It's like, this guy is obviously a known criminal, so let's just pin it on him.
Well, they pointed out that Malby had been there before. Like, he'd been in the house before.
Right.
Which I think later on Malby also confirms he was there, but we're not there yet. But you're right. You've seen a lot of these movies because they are the movies that I watch, and I think it's an important piece to put in. Yeah. And we get to see it, and people need to like understand that this shit still happens to this day.
Sure, yeah. But this is where, like you said, I may have been reading too much into it because I definitely saw Denzel's accents. Like the very previous scene where he's talking to Malby, fairly strong Jamaican accent. This scene, when he's talking to all white people authority, he has a very distinct American accent. I had assumed that was an intentional choice.
You could be right. Because one of the things that we also know about the character
sounds credible.
One of the things that we also know about the character, the minor spoiler, is that he served in the U.S. military and in the FBI headquarters for like a year or two. So we didn't have all that point of reference, and then came back to the island.
Right. So he spent time in America. So it's and very likely that he quickly tried to eradicate his accent so he would fit in better in that situation. I mean, certainly I've lived here for a few years, and I've debated off and on getting elocation lessons to eradicate my accent. I haven't done that, but like yeah, there's a different kind of pressure to fit in and sounds like you belong. And so when everyone else around you who is an authority sounds a certain way, one way to get them to pay attention to you is to sound like them. So I again maybe that was a nuance that 80s audiences weren't willing to climb onto, or maybe I'm overthinking it. But to me, it definitely sounds like he was only doing that to specific characters in the movie.
I'd have to go back and watch it for that. But it's also at the same time, code switching wasn't something that was like, I won't, common knowledge isn't the right word, but wasn't like common parlance for people to really associate with.
It
Much
wasn't in
less
the
like
common
the
consensus.
reviewers.
Yeah. Right.
But it is something that Black people have known for ever.
Right. Exactly. It's something that I was like, Black audiences are going, oh yeah, of course he's doing that. Whereas white audiences are going, I don't understand. Why is his accent all over the place?
So I may need to go back and watch it again just for that. Punish myself with a good time.
Oh no, you have to watch the movie again.
Boiled. They boil the body, Eddie. Boiled it, and then they're trying to get the body off it out of an autopsy.
Right.
How is every part of that just seems like so incredibly evil. And then you stop and think about it, and of course they're in like a Caribbean island and they're white wealthy people, so of course they think whatever they say should go.
Right. To the point where like you said, I think it's Thomas 3 separate times is like just rubber stamp this functionally.
And the fact that he could call the governor, and the governor is like, yes, do what he says, because it's all about the money and the importance of tourism on the island, which keeps everything flowing.
Right.
Economy.
Yeah. And again, like that, it happens over a short period of time, but like it doesn't feel forced. The investigation, I use that term loosely, that Quinn involved with here is rushed, but like it doesn't feel like the movie's rushing through this moment. You feel the pressure on Quinn to quickly wrap this up, and the speed at which all this information presented does feel suspicious, right? But again, like it feels like we're just following along with like Quinn is. So we're feeling Quinn's suspicion about why we're being so rushed about this, not the movie is rushing through this investigation scene, which is an interesting balance.
And then we have the fact that he even states when he goes over to Headley, is that her name?
Headley Lamar.
That's where I was going with it. So whatever, I can't hear Headley without thinking of that. Goes over to her and says, I can't sit down unless I'm being productive.
Right.
Like, boom, reinforcing the racism of the area and time that they're in. Like, and the extra amount of pressure that also implies on him to do the job that he's in.
Mm-hmm. And her, there's kind of interesting dynamic because, like, she gives him explicit permission to sit next to her, which makes sense, right? Say, I'm allowing you to do this. But then she seems a little put out when he doesn't do that, which again sets a certain dynamic up.
But then we get the exchange between Thomas and her about her openness to other people.
Right.
And we have Quinn getting the exchange where Thomas actually physically assaults her.
Right.
So building up and setting up like important points later. And we've also, in the past 15 to 20 minutes, we've gotten more and more hints about some sort of problem with Quinn and his wife. But we don't know what. It's just floating in the background.
Right, because if I remember correctly, he makes a comment about being married, and she seems to blow that off. If I remember, if it's a scene,
that was the first woman at the wedding. Right. Sorry, and he mentions a wife somewhere here too.
Right. But you're right in the sense that there's subtle hints of like he's doing it out of obligation rather than fidelity.
Yeah. So something. So it's getting good hooks out. Anything else before we move on to the next beat?
No, I think it's good.
Quinn, continuing his investigation, learns that Malby eluded the police and questions a witness who says Malby has a rare $10,000 bill before remembering his son, who he's hours late to pick up for, and races to finding the kid playing drums. We get some father/son bonding time, learn about snakes and plantation owners, and we finally meet his wife and her band. Lola rips into Quinn, and the two go at it before he tells her Malby is a suspect. Later, Quinn brings the local doc to the airport to autopsy the body without anyone else's knowledge, while Malby leaves Quinn a photo of the pair of them when they were kids on the beach. When the police, while the police debate about how hard Malby is to find, and the culprit is living their vacations. I need to
Right.
reword that.
This reminded me, I did forget one minor thing about the early section, but it kind of leads into this one is how Malby's kind of funny escape, but how he literally tears the house down in order to escape.
Yeah.
By continuing to hit that center pillar, that center post. But again, like it's very Bugs Bunny keeps coming up throughout this movie, and very much linking Malby with Bugs Bunny, and that scene, and then leading into these scenes, there is a lot of Bugs Bunny energy in Malby. Is a kind of trickster, is probably the best way of putting it. You know, he's charismatic, he's funny, but also very agile, very smart, and always has a joke on his lips. So like it's interesting that Bugs Bunny keeps kind of being the token connection, because Quinn doesn't really. I don't think Quinn, at least in this section, doesn't explicitly link those two, but it just keeps kind of coming up, and then I kept naturally connecting that to Malby and not Quinn.
That's why I chose the quote that I did, because Quinn gets associated with Elmer Fudd, and
Right.
to some extent, that is the story of this movie. That rascally rabbit.
Mm-hmm. Right. But it's interesting, but like it's not entirely true. And Quinn resents it for a lot of reasons, partially because who wants to be Elmer Fudd, right?
Yeah.
But it reminds me of an old story about the word Nimrod, because Nimrod was supposed to be a mighty hunter, and during, I believe it's what's Opera Talk, Bugs called Elmer Fudd Nimrod as a joke. It's sarcasm. It's like, oh, hey Nimrod, like, you know, hey, great hunter, because you screwed up. But because people didn't have the context over time, they just assumed Nimrod meant idiot. And so Quinn doesn't want to be considered an idiot, right? Because he's not. He's a smart guy. He's spent his whole life doing this. But everyone celebrates Bugs because everyone loves Bugs.
I guess it's telling me that if you say the word Nimrod, my immediate thought is like this 8 to 9 foot tall robot that's white that hunts mutants. That's my instant thought of Nimrod whenever you say it.
Right, that's a reference to the classical thing. But like if you look in like the dictionary, now the primary definition is idiot.
Back when Nimrod was scary. Oh,
yeah, nah.
I said that. Shirley Ralph is astounding. That's it. That's my whole comment about that scene. That's
all I got. That Ralph is astounding.
Yeah, that's. We also learned that I didn't write the woman's name down, but he keeps dodging the woman that has interest in him, who's after his love, and instead to like sleep in his office, he waits for her to pass by. I love the constant beats that he loves his wife, and he has these other opportunities, but he's not taking them.
Yes, right. Which another reason why I'm frustrated that the love interest didn't make it on the screen, because that's very clearly where this movie's going. Is like he's been avoiding temptation so much,
Yeah.
But again, like, there's a great scene where he gets home and he's like, your son's home late, and she's being very reasonable around her bandmates, and then, can we go talk to you privately? And then it just tears a strip off them as soon as the door's closed, right?
But we see how thin those doors are. There's no way
Yes.
they didn't hear that. Like,
Especially at a point where it opens it and he closes it again. So like they've definitely heard it because at one point in time it's open when she's yelling at him. So like it's she feels the need to make of having the very thin veneer that she is not henpecking him, but it's very clear that everyone knows this.
oh, and the scene with his son as they're walking back and him explaining,
Love that.
it tells so much about like about history, about how trying to enslave a certain group of people hurts everyone on the whole, and how there's so much in that little quick narrative that is easy to miss, but is powerful if you know anything about history.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's I inadvertently ended up watching that scene 3 times. Partially because the first time my internet went out and I had to reboot it and it just lost my place, so I had to watch the scene again. Then another time, their accents are a little thick in that specific scene, and the subtitles got a little screwed up, so I had to rewatch it again to kind of hear what was being said. But I don't begrudge it because again, like Denzel has fantastic chemistry. I genuinely believe that was his kid, right? Even though it's a very short scene. Just the way the kid's sitting there, it's like I just waited, and he's like, I'm sorry, I'm late. He gives like the kid's used to it, but he's not put out. So I just found a way to entertain myself. It's cool, whatever.
And that's telling of a story too of like a dad who's obsessed with their job more than anything else.
Yes, but while the wife begrudges that, his son doesn't.
Because she knows better.
Right. Because again, like so through implication, we get a sense that the son has a little more maybe hero worship of his dad.
Yeah. And it is an old song that stereotypically that men with the job get obsessed with the job, and that's what they focus on more than the family and everything else.
Right.
But here we learn from her that it's not just the job, but he's got involved in politics, and she's telling us even in this scene, you've forgotten who you are and what's important.
Right.
And he's like, I'm doing all of this for all of you. So there's that dynamic back and forth.
Mm-hmm. I did think of you also during the scene because I know one thing that you've been very frustrated by with media is Black fatherhood specifically being portrayed as a negative. And I was curious how this scene landed for you because like I felt like it showed him as being a reasonably good father, but also he was 3 hours late picking up his own son and forgot about it. So like it could go either way.
I like the scene because before this scene happened, we've established what his job is and what he does and how he's doing it. And then the realization, and at least could be just Denzel's acting, the him's going, holy shit, I forgot to do this thing, but it becomes the most important thing for him to get there, and he's apologetic.
Right.
Like, so that shows like the level of warmth that like I fucked up again. And we know it's not the first time. Even how you're saying, the kid's like, oh, it's okay. It happens. To show that there's already that bond, and he knows he keeps fucking up, but he keeps trying to fix it. And it's not showing him in a negative light, it's showing him as human.
I thought so too, because certainly for me, it was obviously meant to be a humorous beat of like, go pick up your kid. Okay, then we forget about it for a couple minutes. Like, I forgot to pick up my kid. But to his credit, he drops everything. As soon as he realizes that he drops everything and immediately goes to pick up his kid. Right. And to me, I liked that. It's like you said, it was human. It wasn't I don't care about my kids. It was I've got so much on my plate.
Yeah. And it wasn't him saying, well, I'll just do this one other thing for the case and let the kid wait a little bit longer. There wasn't any of that. It was like, most important thing, screwed up. It's one of the reasons that why I love Deep Space Nine so much is the relationship between Sisko and Jake.
Right. Our opinions about Jake aside, their relationship is
they could have done a lot with Lofton, I think is his last name.
Yeah.
Could have done a lot more of that character than they did. The bandmates, I think I already mentioned, are Bob Marley's daughters, if memory serves. anything else about this section?
Nope. I think we can move on.
I did leave this point out. He on the beach, because he goes to the beach where the photo is, and he sees Malby and he chases him, and he falls down. Do you think that fall was intentional, or was it just Denzel accidentally fell? I couldn't tell. There was something about it that seemed too real of a fall.
I'm wondering if they did that scene a few times, and one of them he did actually fall, and then the edit they said, let's just keep that one.
It felt too real. As much as I will applaud his acting, that felt a little too real to go, fuck, I'm okay, I'm up.
Right, yeah. It felt like there's a certain kind of stunt falling you can do, and more modern movies have gotten better about this, but like in older films, you can kind of see they're falling a very specific way to avoid getting hurt. That did not look like that. That looked like someone who face planted into the sand.
Yeah. Brought it up because that's one of my questions when I look at my note sheet. Was that fall intentional? Chalk grills Quinn about the autopsying the body before introducing Quinn to Miller. Blade Runner, ex-Blade Runner. An affable American said to represent Pater's company. Following on his deputies, leads with Fred in tow. That's, I didn't say his first name, Fred Miller. With Fred in tow, he visits and questions Uber Pearl. I so much wanted to break out in the song Moving On Up, but I choose not to.
I know.
I'm more of an adult now, supposedly. The local witch and aunt of Malby's girlfriend, Isola. The investigation continues as no one is willing to talk to Quinn about Malby. They don't know shit until finally someone points him to a dark white guy in a cowboy hat at the hotel. That guy that points him, I want to say, is also like a famous musician. We have another confrontation between Quinn and Thomas about how he dresses and he's overstepped. Quinn sneaks into Thomas's house, discovering a missing ancient dagger. He interviews the wife as she flirts hard with him while implicating Malby in a robbery. Quinn arrests Jose Pinta, who claims to be on vacation, but has also been questioning people about Malby's whereabouts. A lot of movie right there.
Yes, and to be honest, we're now at a part of the movie where it's like 50% espionage film, 50% sex farce. And it's just like, what the heck is going on? Like, I'm like it's funny you make the Blade Runner reference, because now that I know that the same writer worked on both, that's also doubly funny. But like, that actor, every time I see him, it's like he always plays characters that start off as being kind of funny and jokey, and then you find out they're actually secretly deeply fucked up. And I don't know, that's a very specific niche, but he's very good at it.
There are lots of actors that have like, this is my role, this is what I'm known for. If you put me on screen, people know this is what the character is.
Right. So like we see him, we see Frank Miller, and it's just like after about 5 minutes, I was like, this guy's got to be like CIA or something. It turns out he was. And we'll see in a bit how that goes, right? But it was just wild to me, because like someone like when Ubu Pearl comes in, it's like, I know exactly what this character's gonna be like, because I know the woman playing her and how she plays things. And she more or less does that. But there's some value in hiring those kinds of actors and having, like, it's a shorthand, right? The audience go, I've seen the actor before, I know the kinds of things they do, so I kind of know how this character's going to work. So you have to spend less screen time building that part out. You can go, okay, I know how this is going to play.
Did you think Uba Pearl was an actual witch and we'd stepped into Supernatural?
For a minute, I was debating, right? Because they kept calling her the witch, and I'm like, that's not uncommon, but the way this movie shifting gears, and then the ancient dagger reference, I'm like, oh my god, is this actually a supernatural thing? Like, are ghosts on the table? What is going on? It's not. But for like about 10 to 15 minutes, I wasn't sure.
This is one of the reasons I love watching movies that you haven't seen so much. Is because now that we're approaching it somewhat analytically, I put question marks on that. And as older adults, we can see different things in the movie. So I'm always curious where the movie would hit you now versus if you'd seen it like 20 years ago.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And that is a perspective I can never have again. So I love it.
I'm with you. Like, and that's why I'm glad to sometimes do these things. Like, yeah, this is all new to me. Um, but again, it helps because like if this had been a cut rate James Bond film, and we've seen a couple movies like that, or like if it's been, just a buddy cop film, I would have been like, okay, she's the goofy mother that she claims as a witch, and that's kind of it's gonna be a funny bit. And to the movie's credit, that is more or less what happens, right? But because there's so much genre shifting happening, I couldn't completely discount it. And just when I think I've got a handle of this movie, it goes a different direction. Like there's a bit coming up very shortly here where did not see coming, right? Because the movie just constantly changes gears. And so when you get to when they're arresting Jose, right? Mind you, I did like the fact that he was defined by the Jamaican characters as dark white guy. Yeah. It's like Latino is not a spectrum we acknowledge. It's just there's black people and there's white people, and everyone falls into one of those two categories.
And plus, in like the late 80s, I'm trying to like remember
Right.
when certain identifiers popped into common parlance.
Right. I believe. I mean, it wasn't Latinx then, but I think it was Latino. But I mean, I think it was right around there because it would have been around the time Rico Suave was charting specifically, and so you had that renaissance of Mexican pop culture specifically.
Yeah.
But it would have been like really close. So yeah, I don't know how much of that is maybe 80s shorthands, how much of that is slightly older time period of the original setting, how much of that is just the nature of how this island.
That was written in 1970. That the book novel was written in 1970.
Sure, right, but like I also can say a certain amount of white as a scripter of not people, not us, right?
Yeah.
People not of our community, and he does fit into that category from that perspective.
The other thing I do want to point out that I don't know if I mentioned before is Albert Carr was a white guy, by the way.
That's more unfortunate. I was wondering if that was what was going on there.
I just wanted to point that out. I love the fact that when Quinn is with Chalk, the governor, the governor constantly reinforces the importance of money coming to the island. Like that is showing his entire thought. And the reason I mentioned the mayor is if you're watching Widow's Bay, the mayor of Widow's Bay is constantly inputting about how important tourism is to come to Widow's Bay. Widow's Bay is a great series on Apple TV. If you haven't watched it, you should. And I may try to convince Eddie that we should cover it on the podcast. But essentially, it talks about the importance of tourism. Widow Bay, horror series. Thriller movie is what we're talking about now. So each of them, position of power, money is important for this community, which you can kind of understand, but at the same time, you're going, dude, they're trying to arrest and kill your citizens, and you're letting this evil shit happen.
Right. It does remind me of the meme that was going around for a while of like the mayor in Jaws 1 is the same mayor in Jaws 2, and that explains the importance of local elections.
Oh, I love it. Oh. Hey, look, if I look at my notes, I did make a note that Pearl is moving on up. I just can't let a joke go.
It's so hard, especially when we were men of a certain age where it's like that would have been the main place I would have known her from.
Well, all right, that's the second main place I know her from. I primarily know her for Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. She has a minor role in that, but it's really important.
Okay, I don't think I've seen that one.
Oh, Eddie, you shouldn't have said that. That's definitely on our list now. That's going to be soon on our list. I may move stuff around to put that on the list.
Wow. Okay.
Essential viewing. I also love Uber Pearl when Fred wants to take a picture of her. She's like, "No, you can't take a picture, except for $2."
Yes. Because this is a case where my own knowledge worked against me because I was like, is she gonna do the because pictures take my soul thing? And I feel like that's where the joke is supposed to go. And then she goes like, except for $2. I'm like, okay, that's actually genuinely funny.
And she lets Quinn search her place, and she was waiting for him to get to the basket. And she's like, "Go ahead, go." Oh, here we go. And he opens the basket, jumps back, and she busts out laughing. That is so perfect. Like everything. It's like, I have done nothing wrong, but you're fucking around and you're about to find out.
I gave you permission. I've complied. Malicious compliance, right?
Oh, this is also, we have our Three Blind Men, our James Bond shout out.
Yep. Hmm.
My last point, then we can move on unless there's something else you want to talk about, is this is where we get more insight into Quinn after he arrests Jose. And he breaks down the gun, telling him what type of gun it is, talks about the silencer, and then does the I'm not U.S. law enforcement and shoots bullets all around Quinn, all around Jose in the jail.
Yep. Yeah, I love, especially because some of that stuff was off screen. So like we again had this weird moment of like Quinn is doing badass interrogation techniques and also showing again, like you said, how skilled he is, but it's also done funny, right? Because it's like you're on vacation. Yes. You have this gun, pulls a gun into frame. It's like, yes. With a silencer, pulls a silencer into frame, right? And so and so the increasing thin story that Jose is giving that he's just sticking to doggedly. And then yeah, it goes into suddenly becomes very serious when like you said, it kind of threatens Jose in the cell. But like before that, it was just like almost like police story levels of like, with this bazooka, like he kept pulling up like even more implausible weapons,
And the reason the scene doesn't like go over the top into like gritty is because like the guy in the cell that's obviously been there so long, he's almost family with him, is busting jokes
it.
left and right.
Like
Oh,
I think it's after this, but the bit where he's trying to get the red straight beard to his cell, and then like right before he gets it in, and Quinn's like, "What are you doing?" It's like, you almost get the beer. I love that guy. That prisoner is so great.
Anything else before we move on?
No, let's move on.
We get more flirting between Quinn and Lola for her being too hot. They spiral back into an argument about his work taking over his life, and he's not one of them. Who is he then? Back with the doc, Quinn learns that Pater had been found floating in a hot tub, decapitated, but had died of a venomous spider bite and was already dead when his head was cut off. After being humiliated at Lola's performance, Quinn responds to a house call at the resort with Headley, who's been choked. Quinn gives us his backstory while sipping rum and talking about himself as Elmer Fudd. Headley offers him a good time. Why isn't he leaving? But he can't do it. As Jose is bailed out of jail, he confers with Fred in a seedy hotel. Fred tells him that the operation is over and then kills Pater. Cold. Dead. Pop, pop.
Yep. Real quick, I want to correct you one point, and I don't normally do this, but in this case, it's relevant. He was believed to have died from a venomous snake bite, spider bite.
I said snake, right?
You said spider. That's fair.
Okay,
I do it all the time where like my brain says one thing and my mouth says another. But I bring it up because this was the it's also important because like this was the part where I was deep into oh my god, it's supernatural on the table because we have the snakes in Uba's house, and then he previously with his son been talking about snakes, and so I'm like, is there like a snake god or a Kinda style thing happening at the end of this movie? Or it's like people being possessed by snakes or whatever. I was like, is there a snake thing? And it turns out no, it's just it's a Caribbean island. There are snakes around.
Two things. Good shout out, by the way. Thank you. Because I was the entire time since we've been talking about Malby, I've been thinking about Anansi. So that's where if I did that, it's because I'm right there. And really, Kinda, really, that's where we're gonna go.
I basically did that because I knew you'd be annoyed by it.
I literally just watched because Amazon Prime shows him live is their thing, and I need background sometime when I'm writing. And they had Snake Dance on, which is the lesser of the two.
Yes, whiny brat kid who's like, I got a snake tattoo and I'm badass. It's like, shut up, you're too rich.
Don't people would come after you, Eddie. You're insulting a young Doc Martin.
I don't care.
Quinn confronts the governor about why doesn't he do his job, which is great because I love the fact that he's just trying to do his job. So it's constantly this struggle between the governor and Quinn in his own job, then the white hotel that's obviously the primary financial source in town that he's constantly struggling with, and then his own home life that he's struggling with to be able to do his job. It shows him being pulled in a whole bunch of directions. And it's a bunch of pressure. So
Well,
the opposite of noir is that noir we have pressure on our character who is darker and grimmer and about to break. Quinn here is generally a lighter character that's under a whole bunch of pressure. So it's contrast.
in that regard, I agree. But like, I don't. In one regard, I don't think he's necessarily being pulled in a bunch of directions. I think everyone's pulling in the same direction, which is if he just rubber stamped the case, he could go home early and make his wife happy, right? It's like that would all line up for him, but he can't because he knows something's wrong here. So like, I can see why it feels like he's being pulled in a lot of directions, but really it comes down to all of these forces are aligning to get him to drop it. Like, it's your friend. It's, it comes down to it is his friends. That's the reason why he keeps following the case because like I probably wouldn't do that. But then we have the bit about his wife and their band singing the Mighty Quinn, and it is very clearly her making fun of him. And it's just like, man, you're just rubbing it in a musical. Again, this goes back to a person in the movie is singing something that's plot relevance. In this case, she's using a song to taunt her husband, who happens to be named Quinn. And like the way Denzel responds to that is like he knows what's going on, and he's like, "Fuck you," right? I really love it.
But he doesn't listen to the whole song. So like
Right,
he's
no.
singing it and then he's just like, I'm done. I'm out of here.
Yep. But we still get to hear it. So nice.
This is where we have Coco struggling with the beer, by the way. Is he slowly pulling it in?
Yes. Love it.
And then this is where we learn that Quinn spent 3 years in the Marines and a year at Quantico, and he aced all of his tests at Quantico and everything else to come back here to then become a chief of police.
And like in a different movie, I would have been complaining that like, why are we getting this information so late and whatnot. But like the way that they've built Quinn out this whole movie, it almost feels like I don't even need this information because the movie has shown me how talented and skilled he is. So it's like for him to say, "Oh yeah, I spent 3 years in Marines and I've been a year in Quantico." It's like, of course you have. Everything in the movie has told me that information. So I appreciate the reinforcement, but like I didn't need to know that, which tells you how good the script writing and the acting is because I didn't need to know that. It was good information to have. We have before said sometimes a line here and there would solve a problem. This line maybe it was written to solve a perceived problem by the audience, but I, as watching the movie, didn't feel like it needed to solve that problem.
And I think that's where you come in as a person that has watched a bunch of media in 2026 versus the guy that wrote it in like 1969, published in 71, and the movie that came out in the late 80s.
Probably been like, how could a black man possibly be this good? Well, here's the answer.
No, so that would be the instant assumption like he shouldn't be nearly as skilled as he is. Why could he possibly be that skilled? Right. Would be the thing that they're doing.
That's a good point. And then Miller just fucking murders Jose.
He gives him a chance to leave. So kudos to that. You can just go. I ain't going nowhere. Okay. Pop.
But here's the thing, right? Okay. We just said a minute ago, I've seen this guy in other movies. I know the kind of roles he plays. I was still surprised by this. Because he's like, hey, buddy, let's just, you're causing a little bit of problem. Let's just kind of do this. And then when he does he drops the thing on the floor and Jose bends over and they just stomps him to the ground and just off camera. And I'm just like, what is going on? Because we don't see anything, but it's really clear that he just shot him in the back of the head with a silenced pistol twice and then just walks out like nothing.
Because he's dressed like a schlub. He's not as athletic as Jose was. So you make an assumption that Jose could easily take this guy.
Right.
Which gives him an advantage if he can surprise attack someone.
Mm-hmm.
And guns are the great equalizer regardless of skill.
Right. And something that I didn't notice at the time, but since we talked about it, is relevant is like only the non-Jamaican characters have guns in this movie.
Quinn has
except
a gun.
Huh?
Quinn has a gun.
Okay, well, he's a police officer. But yeah, right. But like I said, everyone else using knives or whatnot. So like we've talked before about how in certain movies weapons and violence can show you stakes or not. The Western realm, we talked a lot about how violence can adjust the stakes. And then there was an interesting moment here because like we saw the gun in the cell scene where Quinn was showing the gun to Jose and whatnot. And so it's like, okay, guns are on the table. Now there's silencer on the table. So that's a certain amount of expectation, but no one's actually used it yet. So I think the reason why this shocked me so much is because guns are still being used as a prop, as a setting detail for most of this movie and most of this scene. And then suddenly it becomes a weapon. And so, like, your brain kind of has a weird moment because, like, of course it's a weapon. It's a gun. That's the whole point of this entire conversation, is that it is a weapon. But still, the suddenness in which it is rapidly being used as a weapon is still a hard gear shift because the movie has not treated it like a weapon until that exact moment.
Yeah, and it showed you how deadly it is because
Yep.
it wasn't that he was shot once. He was shot twice. Done. There's no more
Yep.
discussion. There's no he gets up later and comes after you dead.
Right, because the way again, it happens all off screen. Beautiful use of off screen imagery. Like he does this, we hear the sound effects, and then he just casually walks away. So we know there's no way he's getting up. And Miller knows that he's not getting up. He's so confident in what just happened, which makes Miller all the more scarier as a result. Because he seems almost like bored by having to have done that. Which again, like, I know this actor does that bit really well, but it still shocked me, which is very impressive.
I think he is or possibly was Emmett Walsh was his name.
I believe so. Yeah, that sounds right.
I gotta say though, if I'd ever run into him, I would have been inclined to punch him in the face and run away. Like that is the vibe he gives off when I see him.
Yeah, he's creepy as hell, but
Anything else before I move on?
no, I think that's the end of the scene.
Later that night, after leaving Headley, Quinn goes to the club and plays the piano like the old days, trying to bond, but is only ended up being greeted by the taunting song "The Mighty Quinn."
The Mighty Quinn.
And then the revelation sort of hits him that it's not a taunt, but an invitation for him to go back to who he used to be. As he drunkenly leaves, Malby picks him up in the governor's borrowed car, and the pair hang out like old friends at night. But Malby vanishes in the morning. Quinn discovers that Pater, a close associate of the President of the United States, like the writer, brought a stack of $10,000 bills to the island to be picked up by Jose. The president wanted to fund an anti-communist revolution in Latin America, but Congress would not support this. The president acts illegally using CIA to deliver discontinued currency that is still legal, but will not be missing from storage at the U.S. Treasury. The murderer interfered with the plan, so the CIA sent Fred to retrieve the money and plug up the holes. Waka, waka, waka.
Right. To touch on that last bit really briefly, this movie came out like a year or two after Iran-Contra. Like pretty close to the Iran-Contra scandal.
I don't remember those exact years, so I'll say yes and agree with you.
Well, the point is, like, the CIA funding militant groups overseas illegally to preserve America's interests would have been very resonant in the popular culture at the time the movie came out.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate that that is still relevant today, but it would have been like, again, like, it was during Reagan's run that Iran-Contra came out, and it was later in his run, so it probably would have been the mid to late 80s when that happened. So I find it interesting that this movie was written in the early 70s, or the novel was written in the early 70s. And again, this is the part where I thought maybe the movie was rewritten to address popular events, but also I know that, and this is obscure bit of information that you probably know, but other people may not. I also know that, like, the Chiquita Banana Company funded revolutions in Central America, which means corporate wars have been around for decades, my friends.
You know what? If the people listening to this are active listeners, they would know that because we covered that in the James Bond run.
Oh, you're right. We did cover Chiquita Banana and James Bond. You are correct. I forgot we did that.
And I want to mention Bond specifically because, as you said at the top of the show, this scene feels like fucking Goldfinger. Let me explain to you, Mr. Bond, about the gold currency. Let me explain to you, stupid American, about the $10,000 bill.
And maybe it's just because of how I'm wired, but like I was like, yes, please tell me about this. I'm actually really interested in this information. It didn't feel like a long explanatory scene, partially because I think Quinn was knowledgeable about a lot of this stuff. So, like, it continued to reinforce Quinn's a really cool cursor who knows a lot of interesting stuff. But it was a lot of exposition, and I just didn't care at that moment.
I want to take a beat on that then and point out that Quinn has actually been investigating this whole time, like an
Yes, that's
actual
true.
investigation. It's rare in a lot of the movies that we watch where there are investigators.
Right. This isn't Quinn stumbling into the next plot relevant beat. Like, he's
James Bond.
arriving in the scene because he's investigated his way there. Right. Oh, Bond is a terrible investigator. We've established that. I'm gonna wander into bed. I'm gonna wander into the next scene where I get assassinated. Oh, look, the assassin has a clue that I happen. It tells me exactly where I need to go. It's like the most ham-fisted game master ever.
In the club, he plays the cakewalk, Eddie. He plays the cakewalk. I loved it.
Yes.
I loved it. And I love that scene because it's when he's about to get upset and leave again about the Mighty Quinn, the band like switching the song to be the Mighty Quinn and laughing. It's the woman that's been flirting with the whole time that comes and has him wait an extra beat, and he gets to hear that the song has the Mighty Quinn saving the loved Malby. So it's not just a song making fun of him. It's a song talking about like the shit he's done wrong, but how he can still sort of come back. And it becomes a scene about the community, and he stays, and we get like this big bonding moment. In a RPG game, like in a Cthulhu game, he'd get back sanity in this scene.
Absolutely. And actually, this pays off a point I made earlier. Like, when I started the movie watching it going, why'd they change the title? It seems like a weird thing. And we kind of talked about, well, audiences don't know the thing. They're just like, by the time this movie, I was like, okay, they changed the title because Quinn's main character. Well, I know that. But I realized this interesting metatextual thing happening by this scene. Because you call the movie The Mighty Quinn, and then we see Quinn immediately afterwards, we are going, okay, this character Quinn apparently is mighty. Hence, the movie tells me that, right? Quinn does not believe that for a good chunk of the movie. But we keep hearing the song, The Mighty Quinn. And again, as we said before, like he's chastised by it. It's used mockingly. He realizes, hey, this is actually a celebratory thing. It's proves who I am. But we as the audience kind of knew it all along.
Yeah.
So we have this weird thing of like, because of the title of the movie, we had expectations on his character that he did not have on himself until this part of the movie.
And what I love is it still takes an active force of the community to have him take a beat to really pay attention.
Right. And if he had to his wife's credit, if he had paying a little attention to his wife, paying a little attention to what she needs, maybe he would have realized that wasn't necessarily what she was trying to do. Yes, there's some of that there. There's very clearly ribbing happening here, but he was taking it a lot more personally than perhaps was intended.
Which goes back, though, to all the pressure that he's under. To like, he's about to snap.
Yeah.
Oh. I assume then that governor's car is like a special issue bond tack because Malby's rocking in that car and there's no sound outside.
Right.
Open the door, bam. Close the door, no sound.
Right. And at first I was like, oh, it's just a conceit of like, the music we're hearing as the audience is actually diegetic, and so when you close the door, it shuts off thing. But like, yeah, it was so sudden that I was just like, no, that's a joke. That's a bit. It's like, all the music you've been hearing for the movie, now we're just gonna stop, cut it off right there. And it's just like, that's actually an interesting musical joke. I appreciate that.
And even drunk, he still tries to arrest Malby before they just hang out.
Right.
Oh,
right.
Beautiful. Anything else before we move on? I think we covered most of that.
Yeah, we did it backwards, but yeah, I covered that.
Well, come on, the Goldfinger reference. Yeah,
got to. Yeah.
Miller goes to Uber Pearl and demands to know where Malby is, and the money needs to go back. When she refuses, he burns down the house with her inside. Quinn finds Isola hidden in the woods, who says Miller killed her aunt. Quinn tracks Malby down at their childhood playground in ancient ruins, because that's what you do. Malby explains that Pater impregnated Isola when she was a maid at the hotel. When Uber Pearl demanded that Pater support the child, Pater fired Isola. Uber Pearl instructed Isola to go to the hotel and leave a snake in Pater's room. Malby sped to the hotel and arrived just as Pater was dying from a snake bite. He cut off Pater's head and put his body in the tub to attempt to conceal the cause of death and grab the sack of money.
This fucking movie, man. Like I'm laughing. It's like going, he burned your house down. Why are you laughing? It's like because this whole moment, like the drama and tension from the thriller and the over the top nature of what's actually going on have fused into some unholy. So like again, like you have someone like Miller shows up and it's like, I'm threatening the old lady, and she goes, no, and then he burns her fucking house down. It's funny because like that is an extreme overreaction, my friend. You didn't need to go that far, but nothing about this character has proven he wouldn't be that ludicrously over the top.
Because he takes the broom, which is a side note, in some African cultures, you jump the broom when you get married. So takes the
Right.
broom off her wall, which I did for my own wedding. But he takes the broom off her wall, shoves it into like the wheelchair so she can't roll, sets her on fire, then sits in the house with her with a fan. It's getting hot in here, mama.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
the actual fuck?
Right. And so again, you have this room like this guy is so charismatic that it's shot and acted like it's funny, but it's deeply disturbing. And so it's like you don't know what to do. It's like I found it hysterical. But it's like also the stakes have just jumped through the roof in this movie. Because until this point in time, it was like, yeah, this guy's he's murdered another assassin and he's clearly wants the money back, but otherwise it's kind of a funny robbery story. And now it's like, no, this is like deadly serious. But again, like when Malby's describing what happens, it's all pitched like it's a serious dramatic reveal, but the shit he's saying is just bonkers, right?
And what I do love, though, Uba Pearl's last active move is to have Isola flee so she protects her. Like, even her last thought, knowing she's going to die, I've saved you, so it's okay.
Yep.
Oh.
And another bit of like show don't tell is we didn't really talk about this, but Isola and Malby, very beginning of the movie, very clearly passionately involved and in love. But then we don't see Malby and Isola together for like the rest of the film, really. Maybe a couple of minor bits here and there, but like we don't see them really interacting together. But we keep hearing how Isola is Malby's friend, so is Malby's friend, and so we get to know Isola mostly through Ubu, right? We don't really get to talk to her much, but because people we care about in the movie care about Isola, we do have kind of a transitive moment of compassion when Malby explains what happens. All of that happened off screen. We didn't see any of that stuff. And in a lesser movie, trying to big up this character with barely seen and going, well, we should care about her because I care about her, wouldn't really work. But it does here because we care so much about this guy. And one of them was just burned to death. And so immediately afterwards going, and all this horrible thing happened to Isola, you end up caring, at least I end up caring for her as a result, because it was right after something happened to her mother. And also because we saw how much Malby seemed to care about her and also cares about Quinn. So it's like, we feel like she is a person worth caring about, and therefore we are also angered this happened to her.
Yes. And while we're here, do you also think a spin on this movie is that this is also Malby's father movie? Because we learned that Peter's person impregnated Isola. She had the kid, and so Malby loves her and seems to be taking care of her and the kid. So essentially, he's become like the child's father.
Yeah, and while it's never said, by this point in the movie, I very much get the impression that part of the reason why he got the money was to help Isola and her son, or her child. Sorry.
Love it. And I got to take a beat to talk about Quinn and Malby's fight in the ruin, and both of them talk about their old instructor, Thunderstone.
Yes,
Eddy. Thunderstone is the best G.I. Joe name that has never been. And I was thinking to myself, Yo Joe, the whole time I heard it.
Right. Thunderstone, the capoeira instructor for G.I. Joe. Oh. That is very much capoeira that they're doing.
Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm.
Fred appears and holds the pear at Uzi point. Malby hands over the money, and Miller departs in a helicopter. Enraged, Malby grabs onto the helicopter as it lifts him over the ocean. Fred shoots at Malby, and Quinn watches helplessly as his friend's body falls into the ocean. A snake hidden in the sack of money slithers out and fatally bites the helicopter pilot. Fred struggles to gain control, but the helicopter crashes into the old ruins and explodes. Grieved at the loss of his friend, Quinn returns home and reconciles with his wife. And they have a great time. As later he walks on the beach with his son, the camera pans down to show a line of bare footprints emerging from the water, leading to a rock with a $10,000 bill placed on it, fluttering in the wind.
He survived. Maybe kind of sort of. No.
End of movie.
End of movie. And again, like one thing you glanced over a little bit, which I understand why, but like his thing is like Mobby grabs in the helicopter, and then you say later he gets shot and falls in the ocean. In the middle of that, you have Quinn going, "Let go," and Mobby's like, "I don't think I can." Right? So they shove a comedic beat right in the middle of his action sequence, and then he dies like 30 seconds later.
You guess he dies, Eddie. It could be magic,
right? But like again, like to go back to violence escalation of stakes, right? Like, I had misremembered slightly about who had guns here, but I think it's partially because of what Fred Miller is doing here, because like his weapons get more and more ludicrous as the movie goes on. Now he has an Uzi, right? And it's like, why? There's nothing in this movie that requires you to escalate to Uzi, but he does because he's Fred Miller, and that is the character he is now. He's just off the wall violence.
It's Eddie. He not only has an Uzi, he has a fucking helicopter. Like,
of course he does.
Showing he has CIA budget is what he has.
Right, exactly. And that's very much what's happening here. Is like this guy has a black budget somewhere, and he is the kind of guy who will use all of the big bad toys because he can. And if this were a movie made by any other country except for the US, I would assume he would be an American stereotype. Because it's an American-made film, that's not quite what's happening here. But like you could see in a British film, this guy would have been the American, you know?
I bet you if this movie was 10 minutes longer and they had another scene with Fred, he would have broke out a bazooka. Like, let's do this.
100%. He would have somehow come out of the ruin on fire with a bazooka and just no, totally 100%. Absolutely, that is what this guy is.
Okay, my friend, what are your final thoughts on the Mighty Quinn? Come on with that. You ain't seen nothing
all that
like the Mighty Quinn.
No, I genuinely enjoyed it. What the fuck? I should contrast. Like I've been doing lots of what is going on here. That is not El Topo levels of what is going on here. This is very different. Like I was enjoying the sudden tone changes, and we've talked about watchability a lot, and I think one of the reasons why this movie is so watchable is because of those tone changes. You're afraid to look away for too long because the movie's going to do something completely different, and you're not prepared for it. It's not fast paced, which is somehow how this movie. It's wild. Like the movie's not edited with an inch of his life. It's not like rapidly going through the. It's a nice steady pace. There's lots of room for character beats. But again, you're afraid to look away because something different's going to happen. Like blink and someone's house gets burned down. It's that kind of movie, combined with a cast of actors that I would not expect to see on the screen together, but it absolutely works. I have minor criticisms like the relationship with Mimi or whatever her name is, the white woman. I feel like it needed a bit more room for that to actually land correctly.
I think that was a part that was edited down, though.
Right, but yeah, again, we know that was edited down, so like I would love to see the version with that stuff reinstated because I feel like that part would have smoothed that out a bit more. Every once in a while, there are some loose threads. That's like where this doesn't kind of go anywhere. So the movie's not as tidy as it could be, but I don't think it's that kind of movie either, right? Like, there's a guy in a cell and he does funny shit. Coco is his name. I remember it now. Coco does stuff, and that's just beginning, middle, and end of his contribution. He's just, and at one point in time, he does end up being the person that Quinn talks to as a kind of way to externalize his interior monologue. And a source of more jokes. right? But like in a comedy, there are going to be characters that are just there to be a source of jokes. And so, the only reason why his position looks a bit odd is when the movie's chosen this moment not to be a comedy and Coco happens to be in the same scene, right? So, like, you can't fault the movie for being too ambitious with genre shifting and then quibble for it not hitting those tropes in exactly the right moments when it chooses to shift genre. That seems
Yeah.
churlish. So, like, again, I could nitpick, but I don't want to. I think
To
this
some
movie is
extent,
great.
Coco feels like in Mayberry, like the Locotone drunk that just sits in the cell.
Yes. Right. And that's another thing that I found really interesting about this movie. The movie doesn't walk up to this line, but it could have, in that by having all of us on this Caribbean islands, all of the tropes and structures are of like an Andy Griffith show or small town sheriff uncovers a murder, right? These are all tropes that we recognize. And they're juxtaposed onto this Caribbean islands in a way that makes absolute sense in the setting. But like you said, like, you go, oh, Coco's the town drunk. They always gets arrested. Quinn is the small town sheriff that has to deal with the community and can't always make the arrests he feels he needs to because sometimes you got to keep the peace. You have the outsider coming into the small town and disrupts things because they're big city ways, right? All of these tropes are present here, but because they've been transposed onto a Caribbean island, you don't always immediately recognize them. And I like that because once I recognized them, I felt smart. It's like, oh, I see where this is going now because I know this bit. And then the movie goes, yeah, you think you know, but instead we're gonna, blow up a helicopter. So deal with that.
Um, I think it's pretty obvious since this is our whatever the fuck run. I unabashedly love this movie. It is
Mm-hmm.
super watchable. It's it's not like Psych where it's just like a warm blanket, but it's like a good it's a good whiskey. It's not like the top shelf whiskey, but it is a good whiskey that you've got. You can sit there, you can drink it. You're not sipping it, you're just drinking it. And that is what this
Right.
movie is. That is the entire review of the movie. It is a great drinkable whiskey.
You shouldn't even explain it. Just like this movie is a great drinkable whiskey. Anyway, just move on.
Okay, Eddie.
Or
If
better yet,
people decided for some reason that the Mighty Quinn was not their vibe and they couldn't get
right.
into this greatness, what could they expect next time since they've listened this far? Give them something they might latch onto. Something easy to digest.
Well, I've not done that, my friends. Instead, we're going with the BBC series The Young Ones, which is a comedy about a whole bunch of radical leftist stereotypes who all live in the house together, and it's deeply weird and also has Motorhead on it for some reason. So, we're going to watch episodes 1, 2, and 3 of season 1, Demolition, Oil, and Boring, and first episode of season 2 called Bambi.
Bambi. Eddie, if people wanted to
Oh, yeah.
contact you online, support you in some fashion, how could they do that?
You can find me on the web at pugsteady.com. You can also find me on Blue Sky because that's what they're called. Pugsteady.com there too, so it's really easy. But honestly, if you want to chat with me these days, the best place to find me probably is Dark Hue Discord because I like to hang out there. There's some good chats that happen there.
If you're looking for me, you can find me in the Dark Hue Discord. If you want to support me, I've got a Patreon called Harlem Unbounding where I'm actually, when is this coming out? I potentially dropped a new Haunted West scenario based on when this may or may not come out. Who knows with me? Or I'm working on my sci-fi World War I game, All Quiet Beneath. Or I'm potentially writing that Harlem Unbound scenario I'm supposed to be writing. Or I'm working on Redacted 1. Or I convinced Eddie that he should work on Redacted 2. Who knows? At some point, I'll do something. Who the fuck cares?
But you'll find it and you will consume it because that is all we do these days. We consume content.
And you know what? We haven't done this in a while. If you have something that you'd like us to cover on the podcast and you're still listening like over an hour and a half in, contact the Johnless Blue Sky account and probably add us because I don't know when I'll check it again.
Yes. That's a good point. Like, we've talked a lot that we have a reasonably long-term plan with this podcast, but as you probably also heard, we change shit randomly. And by we, I mean Chris. So definitely, if you have thoughts, let us know.
Controlled chaos.